Welcome everyone to our technical series of webinars. Today's topic is a one-stop shop for privacy-preserving data collaboration, introducing the Duality Collaboration Hub. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them in the chat box, and time permitting, we will address them at the end of the session. Today, you will be hearing from Duality's VP of Strategy, Ronen Cohen, and our Head of Advanced Solutions, Zohar Duchin. Ronen leads the strategy at Duality Technologies, helping clients leverage privacy-preserving data collaboration solutions. Previously, he was the Director of Product Marketing at Dataminr, leading the product marketing function globally across all private and public sector verticals. Ronen also spent several years in the fintech and regtech spaces at Intralinks and NICE Actimize, as well as building his own personal lending company. Zohar brings extensive experience in research and development in multidisciplinary and cross-functional environments. He has led several projects in the fields of data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning model development that address challenges in various business domains, such as IT security, healthcare, and operations. Prior to joining Duality, Zohar led the data science research team at RSA and was head of product marketing at Applied Materials. And now I'll hand it over to Ronen to get us started. Ronen?
Thank you very much, Lucy, for that introduction. Where we'll start today is just a simple articulation of the privacy challenge. We'll talk about some different ways that they manifest themselves across different industries, and then we'll focus on one specific example, after which we'll discuss the data collaboration hub. So to begin with, the data collaboration challenge is one that exists across sectors, across industries, and across borders. And basically is that it's difficult for organizations to share and collaborate on sensitive data because of privacy compliance concerns, security and IP concerns, and spread out and fragmented data silos. And those data silos might exist across organizations, they might exist across borders, or even within your own organization across teams. And so sensitive data might be business sensitive data. It might include personally identifiable information, personal health information, and so on and so forth. And so it's these types of data points that make it challenging to actually share and compare these different data sets. So this challenge manifests itself in very different ways across a whole variety of verticals and subverticals. In financial services, for example, data on consumers, like us that own bank accounts, is spread out across multiple different financial institutions. Many people have a checking and savings account at one institution, maybe a 401k or a pension at another. They have a few different credit cards and so on and so forth. And so that makes it very challenging for any one institution to get a full picture of risk or a full picture of their clients for marketing purposes or for internal cross-border collaboration. As another example, we could look at the medical and the healthcare space, where data from different types of patients for clinical trials might be spread out across multiple different sites. And so it's very difficult to find the right types of people to engage in clinical trials because the data is so spread out and because there's so much sensitive information. So those challenges that I spoke about a little bit earlier around privacy, security, and fragmented data really exist across a variety of industries. But to illustrate the example that we'll talk about with the data collaboration hub, we wanted to walk through a very specific example. And so what we'll use here is the concept of trade financing fraud. So what I'll do is I'll explain what trade financing and what trade financing fraud are, talk about some of the collaboration challenges, and talk about the solutions to those challenges. So let's say to begin, what is trade financing for anyone that doesn't know? Trade financing really is the industry that you might not even know exists that makes the world go round. So let's say I'm a manufacturer of cups and I get an order for $1 million worth of cups and I'm going to get paid in 90 days. Well, I need to pay my employees now, and I need to buy raw materials now, and I need to pay my rent or my mortgage now. So what I would do is go to a trade financer and basically show them that I have accounts receivable or an invoice for that $1 million worth of orders. And what they'll do is they'll give me financing today for it and then collect interest later. Now, trade financing fraud is when I take that one invoice for $1 million to multiple different trade financiers and get it financed multiple times. And so each time a lender falls victim to what's called duplicate trade financing, they can lose hundreds of millions of dollars. There are very public examples where just a few banks that got duped together have lost billions of dollars and have caused bankruptcies across the industry. And so really the challenge here is it possible to share across financial institutions that an invoice or that a purchase order has already been financed? Now, the reason that this doesn't happen today is multifold. First, there are privacy laws in each jurisdiction that have to be followed. Second is businesses cannot or might not want to expose who their potential clients are for competitive purposes. So there are a few different obstacles here that are coming together to make it very challenging, maybe even impossible, for a financial institution to share information with another one to say, hey, have you already financed this purchase order from this cup manufacturer? If yes, I know that I don't want to do it myself. So any solution to this problem needs to enable lenders to understand if collateral has been financed without anyone actually exposing who their customers are, who their business relationships are, and enable them to also understand the risk profile of an entity across a network without exposing any information about specific transactions. So if you sort of think about it through another lens, how can you, an ideal solution has to enable you to share data about a transaction without exposing the underlying transaction details, and has to allow you to share data about the party asking for that transaction, like a business, without exposing who that party is and who's banking them. So it seems a little bit backwards, right? Or it doesn't totally make sense. So for this, way above my head, I'm going to turn it over to Zohar to explain how this could even be done technically and if it's possible.
Thank you, Ronen. So in order to fight in this example, this trade financing fraud, there is a mix of privacy-enhancing technologies that should come in place. First of all, there need to be a collaboration or to enable a collaboration between several entities that holds data about the trade financing. And in order to allow this collaboration between them, we need a mix of different privacy-enhancing technologies that each of them addresses different parts in the collaboration. You can think about possibilities of how to fight trade financing fraud in several places. So for example, one can think about building a machine learning model that can predict the risk for having someone that is about to take a loan. In order to train this model, we would probably need to mix federated learning together with probably encryption. Maybe synthetic data should become in place in order to build our analytic pipeline. And mixing this all together can allow us to train a model without actually seeing the sensitive data. In other examples that we might show, we can show later in this webinar, is in the process of giving the loan, we can, for example, send a query to all the network asking for information about a specific candidate, okay? However, we don't want to expose the sensitive information about the candidate because either we can't or it's a business secret. And therefore, we might want to add to the, to use the right path over here, which might be encryption in use. It might be also trusted execution environment that can help us to do this without exposing anything. So we can move forward to a specific privacy enhancing technology that we will use in our specific use case of querying the network about a specific entity. And over here, I will explain about one of these privacy enhancing technologies that we are using, which is called homomorphic encryption. Homomorphic encryption basically is a capability that allows one to encrypt the data. However, while it is encrypted, to use it and do computations on it. So in this case, the computation happens while the data is encrypted. No one sees the actual data. And the only thing that is being exposed by the end of the process is the result itself. In a query example, one can encrypt the predicates of the encryption of the one you are asking about. Query, for example, about the risk score, or query about the number of accounts it has in the network, or other important information that is required, and do that without revealing to anyone the actual details or sensitive information of this entity. The homomorphic encryption is compliant with the regulatory with the regulation, because basically everything is encrypted, nothing can be revealed. The results that you get out of the homomorphic encryption is the same as if you did it on the plain text data. It is resistant to quantum attack, so it's even more secure than the other encryption schemas, and there are existing standards that ensure that it meets the required security. So Ronen, I think that now it's a good time to show the specific demonstration or an example of collaboration hub that can be used in this situation of trade financing.
Perfect. Thanks, Zohar. So what I'll do now is walk through a data and information flow and explain what analytics are going to be done, what is going to be privacy protected and from whom, and what the role of the collaboration hub that we've been talking about is. So let's say, again, we're looking at trade financing. We've received a request for trade financing. We're a bank. We've received a request for trade financing from a manufacturing company. We're not totally sure if it's something that we should finance or not. We don't understand the risk enough. Ideally, what we could do is ask a network of other financial institutions and other types of companies questions about this manufacturing company without us revealing that we have a business relationship with them, and without anyone else who's responding doing the same. So what we could do is create a query or a question. Let's say, how many loans for trade financing has this manufacturing company requested from you in the past week? What we could then do is privacy protect the sensitive information in that question. Let's say that's a tax ID number or a social security number of the beneficial owners. That question is then sent to step 2 to that collaboration hub. You can think of that collaboration hub as basically a routing node that adds another level of anonymity. So what it does is it takes that question and sends it out to an entire network of financial institutions. Now, let's say it goes out to 10 different financial institutions. Each one of those is going to receive that encrypted query. That encrypted query is going to run against data that they've designated, that they've made available for this question. The query is going to run without ever decrypting. It's going to find a set of encrypted results and send those results back to the hub. That hub is then going to aggregate and anonymize those results. So basically, it's going to send us back a response that says, this manufacturing company has applied to X different loans over the past 1 week, but we don't know how each specific bank responded. And so it's not revealing whether that manufacturing company has any business relationships already pre-existing. And the other members of the network also never know which manufacturing company we're even talking about here. So the privacy of the manufacturing company is protected the whole way through. The privacy of the business relationship is protected the whole way through. And very importantly, no data ever moves here. And so it's respecting data localization and data residency laws as well. All that's moving is an encrypted question and an encrypted response. And so now I'll basically walk through the same thing in a demo of our UI. So I like to share some caveats before I end the demo. I'm going to do everything manually so you could see it being done, but all of this could be automated and rule-based. I'm also going to show it in our user interface, but everything that you see here is also supported by an API, meaning that your users can actually use any systems that they're using today for trade financing processing, trade financing detection, or whatever it might be in any other industry. So I'm going to move over to the demo environment now, and we're going to start by picking the question that we want to ask. And so what we'll actually do is ask that same question that we asked before. How many loans has this company asked for over the past week that are over $1 million worth in loans? Okay. And so what is going to be privacy protected here is that company ID, a tax identification number, for example. So what we're going to do is hit start session. The query is then going to be encrypted. It's going to be sent over to that collaboration hub, who will distribute the query to all the other members of the banks, or the members of the networks. They're going to be able to respond to it without knowing who's asking. And we're going to be able to get a response without knowing how each organization is answering. So I'm going to move over to the view of the hub here, who has, of course, a full audit trail. They could see that the query is being run. They could see who the participants are. They can even see what the query is about. They could see that the query is allowed to run, right? It's already been approved, but there's no way for them to know what company is being asked about. We can also go to the view of one of the network participants. So this is one of the responding parties. They too see that they're receiving a query. They don't know who it actually came from. All they see is that it came from this hub. They also know that it is a query that they have approved. But again, they don't know who the company in question is. And they also don't know what responses they're sending back. So that's how privacy and confidentiality are preserved throughout the entire process. So going back to where we started, which is with the inquirer, we can see that we've received a result. And we can go in and see, oh, they've only asked for one other loan over the past week. So it's very unlikely that this is a case of duplicate financing. This makes us much more comfortable in moving forward with them. Had this number been 10 or 20 or 100, that could have maybe put up some red flags for us, and we'd have to see, okay, does that make sense given the business that this organization is in, and so on and so forth. But the entire idea here is to give us more confidence around whether this is an entity we should be doing business with or not. And these are all different types of questions, and really any question that you can ask here are questions that are unanswerable today, given privacy and security and competitive concerns. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Zohar to explain a little bit more about the architecture and what the deployment looks like for a collaboration hub.
Thank you, Ronen. In order to allow this collaboration hub, basically all participants need to install our software, the SecurePlus software, which basically handles all the privacy enhancing technologies that allows what Ronen just demonstrated. So each of them will need to install. Our software should be installed on a very commodity hardware. Nothing special is needed over there. Once this is done, then you can continue and do a handshake between all the participants who agrees to collaborate on this project. The hub over here is basically also the orchestrator who handles this collaboration and adds the different participants into the network and allow the sharing of information in a privacy-preserving way. Once this happens, then we need to create a project, and a project meaning the collaboration scope, where the participants are being defined, which queries are allowed are also defined, and which data schema is being shared or being exposed through these privacy-preserving technologies. Then once this is done, then you subscribe to the project, and you're basically, after some tests, you're good to go. All in all, from the start of the installation between the participants and being able to start and collaborate, it's a matter of 2-3 days to have this all working. Ronen?
Thanks, Zohar. So maybe just to summarize here, a few different concepts that we discussed. First is that there are various different challenges in accessing and analyzing sensitive data today due to privacy and security and competitive concerns. There are a class of technologies called privacy-enhancing technologies that enable joint analytics and collaboration on data in a privacy-protected way. And each one is a different tool in a toolbox that can be used and even used in complement with other ones to solve specific problems. And then third, one example that we walked through with the Collaboration Hub is how a privacy-enhancing technology, encryption in use, also known as homomorphic encryption, can be deployed across a network to enable that network to share tactical information on patterns, on entities, on transactions, without revealing business relationships, while maintaining anonymity and while preserving privacy the entire time. So I guess the long and short of it is that using privacy technologies today, one can set up network-wide collaborations that have never been possible until today. And so that's our webinar today for you. Hopefully you found it educational and interesting and productive, and would love to see if there are any questions.
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat. The first one is, since the data is decentralized, how does this compare to blockchain or DLT?
Good question. So blockchain or distributed ledger has a very nice quality to it, which is immutability and audit. Okay. And so what that means is that once something is added to the blockchain, anyone can go verify it and check against it. And so one of the strengths of blockchain and DLT is also one of its weaknesses when it comes to privacy. And that is, once something is on the blockchain, anyone can see it. Even if you have a private blockchain network, anyone in that network can see it. And so it doesn't go so far as to address some of the privacy laws or concerns or even the competitive concerns, right? If I add something to the blockchain around who my customers are, Zohar can see it, and Lucy can see it, and anyone else can see it. And so there are certain use cases or certain challenges where the privacy or the competitive or the IP concerns are far too great, and blockchain just simply can't be the right solution for it. So in summary, while blockchain and DLT are inherently public, the Collaboration Hub and privacy-enhancing technologies are inherently private in the way that information is shared.
So this might lead into the second question. Does this comply with all privacy and data residency laws?
That's a bit of an open-ended question. So the answer is that, of course, everything depends, right? There has to be a legal basis that allows you to share information. But privacy-enhancing technologies have been found by regulators and lawmakers, policymakers alike to support different types of privacy legislation, whether those are horizontal legislation like GDPR and CCPA, or vertical specific ones, let's say like HIPAA in healthcare, bank secrecy. So the devil's in the details, but the short answer is that yes, these privacy technologies do support compliance with those laws. And in the specific examples like the one we gave where no data is actually moving, yes, it does also support compliance with data residency and data localization laws.
Okay, next question. How is the network maintained? Who owns it? Is it Duality?
Zohar, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I will take this. Okay, so the network is owned by the participants themselves. Duality, once, except from giving license to its software, is not part of the collaboration. Usually, in the hub collaboration scenario that we just discussed, there is a hub which basically maintains or orchestrates the collaboration between the different participants, and he is the one who coordinates between them, enforce that the only specific queries are being or can be asked between the network, is responsible to see that the participants actually contributes data and not only asking data, and comply with the policy of this collaboration.
Maybe if I could also just add to that or restate, just said another way, the software is used by organizations to set up their own networks and enable their customers, for example, to work with one another. And so that hub can be a software vendor or a system integrator. It could be a government agency. It could be a financial institution. There are also instances where Duality is asked to play that role in the hub. But the point I think that Zohar was making is that it doesn't have to be that, right? Because ultimately, this is software that enables you to create and administer and orchestrate network-wide information sharing.
All right, well, that feels like a good place to wrap things up. For those whose questions did not get addressed, we will follow up with responses via email. If you would like to meet with a member of our solutions team for a one-to-one demo or to discuss your data needs, please go to the link on the screen. And we'll also follow up with an email later today, which will include links to learn more. Thank you for participating in our webinar series. We hope to see you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.